world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coach's Why podcast.
That's a great question.
That was my Coach's Why.
Welcome back to another Coach Why podcast, guys. We have a very special guest returning back to the show, Coach Giovanni Vlahos from Cape Fear CC out there in the East Coast over in North Carolina. Coach, how you doing?
Good. Thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, man. It was fun. Last episode, if you guys haven't watched it, I think Coach's was probably like 17, 18, somewhere in that ballpark, I think. And so it's been a little bit, so if you guys haven't had a chance to go watch that one, go watch it. It was a really good one. Coach gave us a lot of gems, so we're super excited to have him back. How's everything been?
Good. It's we're starting to grind out to get the recruiting class coming in for the fall. We have our next ID camp actually tomorrow morning, our final ID camp. So we're hoping to finish up our recruiting class tomorrow and make a better impact than we did this past season. So.
Yeah, you are having an ID camp, and I know that that's something that you've been kind of always have been doing, at least it seems like. If you guys don't know, Coach, actually, I guess you can answer this as I tell them. Coach is or was a scout for Team USA. And so, that was one of my favorite things to talk about last time was, how he separates the two and, just in the recruiting world is always interesting. So, but are you still doing that?
I am. I'm very blessed to still be doing that.
Awesome. Okay. So the ID camps, those are primarily and pretty much, are they only for like athletes trying to kind of showcase for you as in for Cape Fear, or is that a hybrid thing that's for not only other coaches, but also for potentially Team USA?
This is just for us. They're kids who either we've gone to tournaments and identified as kids that we want to see more of. They're, rising, some of them are rising senior, will be rising seniors. So some are 26s grads, 27s and 28s. And some kids are just kids that have expressed interest in coming to beautiful Wilmington and wanting to join our program. So it's the first time that we're actually seeing them. So it's a mixture of kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know last time we talked a little bit about how important that was, just, being able to see the kids and have, being in front of them in terms of these ID camps or, you showing up in person to talk about that or I should say to be there for them during that process and just to kind of get there early, right? Especially as the 2-year school. I don't know if you knew this, but, I got the opportunity to coach at a 2-year now. So I'm actually coaching 2-year or JUCO wrestling. So I don't know if you knew that, but I figured I'd update you as well.
Yeah, we did. I remember I reached out to you just to keep in touch because the first time we were on here, you're just a class act, man. And I've really enjoyed meeting you. And so those are the type of people I always want to keep in contact with. And I remember we reached out right after Thanksgiving holidays or Christmas holidays. And you told me about that, man. So I'm really excited and proud that you got that job, man.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, you're right. I do remember that. And I also... I do remember sometime maybe early last summer when I said I was going to go coach potentially at that 4-year school out in North Carolina, and we talked about what that was going to be like, obviously being relatively close to you, but unfortunately that one fell through, but it was God's plan, and it's all right. It works out just fine. But yeah, okay, you're right. I do remember that now. It took me, I don't know why I forgot that, but you know what? Yeah, you're right. And I do appreciate about you, by the way, because I feel like you reach out, kind of whenever I think about it, but it's every, we're not texting, talking every day, but, reaching out every so often just to kind of say what's up, holiday time and stuff. So I do appreciate you doing that, man. Especially after one interaction we've had, was this, and they kind of grew to that. So I appreciate that as well. So that's huge. But we can kind of get started now. I mean, if you guys are curious about Coach and kind of where he grew up and some of his things, we had some questions at the end of the show, like who's your favorite athlete, like soccer player, I should say, what state. Actually, I don't know if I asked this question. Maybe I'll wait till the end. I know I asked some other questions, but I don't know if my questions were developed by then. So maybe we will. But Coach has asked or answered a lot of really good questions. And so if you guys haven't listened to the second episodes of some other returnees, we talk a little bit more about the game itself. We talk a little bit more behind the scenes, typical days, things like that. So, Coach, to kind of get started on that, whenever you think about the game of soccer, as we know, it's the biggest sport in the world in terms of viewership and just in terms of probably memberships or players. We talked about recruiting last time, and we talked about what you look for in athletes and kind of how you get them. But I'm curious to know, how do you get kids to say yes whenever there's X amount of schools in your state alone, not including your region, right? So how are you getting these kids to actually say, I want to go to Cape?
I mean, Wilmington, North Carolina the blessing is that we're a beach community, and it pretty much sells itself. Anybody who's ever seen the old TV shows, Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, that were filmed here, brand new shows like The Runarounds and Summer I Turned Pretty were filmed here. So it's a big community as far as with people with eyes on us. It's not hard to sell, to kids that you're 6 miles from the beach. Our campus is located on the Cape Fear River. It's not a hard sell, but the way the transfer portal is happening with the NCAA and everything, it's just changing the whole landscape of recruiting in general. There's no more loyalty. So for me, it's we're not always just looking for the best player. It's the best player that fits us and our culture. Sometimes you have good kids that come in, and when you're talking to them, they're just not a right fit for you. They just their goals are to jump ship at the very first opportunity. And even though our job is to move them on, you don't want to hear that off the get-go, that a kid's looking just ready to jump ship,
Right.
or you're a stop for him just because his grades weren't great, or because this financially. But so we look at a couple of different things. Obviously, the technical ability is a big thing, and then just being a right fit for our culture, and then just talking to kids, see what their dreams and aspirations are. We are a community college that has a lot of technical trades. So we also get kids that are going into landscape management or trying to become firefighters. We have barber schools here, dog grooming school. We have everything here.
Wow.
So sometimes you'll get a kid that legitimately is just looking to become a landscaper. He wants to, his mom or dad owns a company, or they're going to take over the family company. So they come in to school to get, honestly, that education and to keep fit and still play the game they love. And they're quality guys. They're just not looking to move on to a 4-year.
So is there anything that by the way, I know I just cut myself off, but I am going to talk a little bit about the transfers and all that stuff, because I know like that is a big thing in collegiate sports nowadays. But I guess going back to what I was going to say, but you talk about you have these kids who come in with your school provides a lot of different opportunities for them, for kids who may want to, like you said, just kind of go into the blue collar work or whatever the case is, right? But is there anything that you, outside of the selling of the school, outside of the selling side of it, I mean, obviously the beach is great, but is there anything that you are maybe saying about the program or about you or your staff or something like that, right? Because, like you said, those things are great. The community, the demographic, geographic, all those things are big things for probably kids that are 17, 18 making a decision. But whenever it's like, well, I'm not really, that's not really important to me. What I care about is my coaches, or I care about this team, or, what you've done, or whatever that is, right? Maybe it's away from that. So is there anything that you do or say or provide to these kids whenever it's not really about maybe the school itself, or maybe even just, where you sit?
I mean, we just finished our 3rd year. I've been blessed that I had some great mentors. I was at Duke University for 3 years, San Diego State, and then scouting for the U.S. national team. It's a big sell, because, like I tell them, these big programs wouldn't trust me to be around their kids unless I had something to offer. So if I have something to offer these big programs, then obviously I have something to offer to you guys. We treat them the exact same way. Obviously, we don't have the money as a Duke or San Diego States or some of these big schools, but in terms of training, we can always bring that intensity to us as coaches. We can always bring that to the field. We can always bring where we sit and we do, training sessions, and we can try to mimic the training sessions of the higher levels and them. Obviously, we don't have, our field is not a Bermuda grass that's just unbelievable. but it's got the bumps and all that sort of stuff. But the sessions and the intensity are something we can bring. So any athlete, any true athlete in any sport, that's a true athlete wants to be challenged and wants to be in the hot seat, and they want to be pushed at all levels, not just physically but mentally. They want to have a coach that's on their butt about things, and holds them to a high standard. And the ones that don't are honestly are kids that we don't want to be around. It's those are the kids that, if they went to a higher program, D1 stuff, they wouldn't excel. We sent a kid to SMU, and in talking to him, the best thing he gave us as far as props to us was he said it was nothing new coming to SMU other than the playing surface was better and a lot of the quality of players obviously are all top notch. He says, but the intensity was the same as it was at Cape Fear. He said, the coaches yelled at me just like you yelled. So, you know what I mean? So those are the things, we're preparing them for that kind of a thing if that's where they want to move on to.
For sure. Yeah. Like you said, you're setting high standards and you're having that intensity, then similar things that play from your previous experiences, right? With Duke, San Diego State and things like that. So, whenever you think about your practice planning, right? And I'm kind of jumping ahead. We'll kind of dance around with some of these questions, of course, but kind of come to my head is, you send a kid off to SMU. So that's D1 as if you don't know, that's a Division I school. But you're also producing or similar practices, right? So is that something that like you feel like is just something that is a standard that because you were that you kind of were able to bring that right to Cape whenever you got there? Was it something that when you got that opportunity at Cape, you have to develop, like you had to develop it to that point, right? Like obviously that's what at least as a coach, I want to produce the best practices to get my kids ready to go to the next level as well. But was that something that you're able to kind of just transfer over and it worked right away, or did you have to kind of build it to get to that level?
No, I brought it with me. Honestly, I had great mentors when I was at Duke. John Kerr and Mike Brady were two of the greatest influences I ever had. I was there for 3 years, and the way that they had high quality players who were getting drafted year after year. I was around with the number 1 draft pick, Andrew Wanker, that got drafted by Montreal Impact, Sebastian Bigway that won the MLS Cup with LAFC. I was around these guys, and the way Kerr and Brady trained and they sat around and thought about sessions and what they did, they could have taken it easy because the quality of players are gonna be intense as it is. But they day in and day out, they put these sessions together to make them better. And it's something that I learned, and I'm so grateful to have that. So when I come here in 3 years, the boys have never done the same session. Never, not one time has the session been the same in 3 years. But it just takes extra effort. You might have to stay up later. You might, being JUCO, you could cut corners. There's a lot of coaches at D1, D2, and D3 that cut corners. Their assistants run the sessions or come up with the sessions, and a lot of the coaches they'll do the exact same thing over and over. But they have high quality players, so they get the victories. But then again, it's one of those things. I got to look at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, I've got to give these kids the same amount of energy they give me at training. I got to put into the sessions, and that's just the way I'm built.
Absolutely. So you're pushing your kids to not only get to that standard, but that's just kind of what is, or not only to a certain standard, but that's the standard that you hold as a coach as well. How do you push kids to reach that level without breaking them, right? Because some kids aren't used to that, right? They might have been just really good, but their coach, but same thing, maybe the high school coach let them have free time off, or maybe it just wasn't as intense as yours, right? So they aren't there yet, or they're not comfortable yet, or whatever the case is. So how do you get that kid to reach that level without breaking them or pushing them away?
In all honesty, we have every year, we always have 2 or 3 kids that drop out during preseason. Either they don't come in fit because they think that it's JUCO, I don't have to come in fit, or they come in, they're not used to the intensity that we bring. And like you said, they come from an environment where it's all hugs and rainbows, and and that was good for them. We've made it a massive. That's what we would love, having kids come into our ID camps and also come train with the team, because we don't change anything. We speak the same around the kids at the ID camp that we do in training sessions. When we invite them, the language we use, everything we do, whether their parents are there watching or not, because we don't want it to be smoke and mirrors for them. We want them to understand that this is the way we are 24/7. And, if they sign with us and then they come and they go, oh, we didn't know it was so intense, it's a cop out, for us. We just say, hey, it's just not meant for you. But in all honesty, every kid's built different. There's some kids that need an arm around them, and some kids that you can put your foot up their rear end, and that's how they work best. They come from a different environment. So we try to get to know our players a lot more on the personal level and see where they come from. Every kid might have a story, and you just don't know that background. So some kids, if you poke them and prod them too much, it's not that they're soft, it's that they might have come from an environment where, I'm not going to say abused, but abused like mentally, in the sense that they're just. So we try really hard to get to know the players as much as we can. Just try to create a family environment as much as we can.
Yeah. I think the idea that they might have came from that trauma-ridden home or something like that, right? Like, they may feel like their personality and who they are is based off of their performance, right? Like how well they do on that pitch is gonna dictate who they are as people. And that might, obviously that's just a small piece of what could be a lot deeper, but that is something that I feel like kind of plays in that range of, that type of household or maybe environment, maybe not just a household, but that type of environment where if you don't do well, you're not going to, I'm going to treat you like this. Right. And so, it kind of sometimes shuts people down to out the personality. So I can appreciate that. That's a big deal for you, is getting to know them on the personal side and doing that. And I know a big part of that is during the recruiting, like not only, or I should say, during the initial process, right? And then obviously you have your probably follow-up steps throughout your recruiting process. I'm sure it's not a one and done, type of thing. But what kind of tips would you give to coaches when it comes to recruiting? Maybe you can answer however you want in a general term, or if there's anything specific about what we just touched on about, how that's an important piece to the recruiting side of things. But anyways, however you want to answer it, what's some tips that you'd give to the coaches out there?
When you're younger, like I started off as a high school coach, JV high school, and then I did regular high school, and it's you want to win. But as you get older, you start to understand that you got to set a standard. You've got to set a culture up. There's some of these great coaches in your realm of the world. Look what's his name did up in Penn State. He came in and created a dynasty because he's got a culture. And the players that come in there understand that. And look, Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and he doesn't have the same success, but he always produces good teams and good players. And it's all down to a culture. It's like I personally believe you can't sacrifice the art of winning. If you get one kid who breaks the rules and you play him because he's your best player, it sends a message to the rest of the players, and I think that's the one thing that I've honestly been consistent about. We have rules, we tell them the rules, we tell them what the culture is, we tell them what the standards are, and we treat everybody the same. If you don't go to class, you can be the best player, you can be the leading scorer, we just won't play you, and even though inside you're gritting your teeth, you're like, man, I wanted to win this game, we really needed it. And at the long-term thing, it's, these kids are going to be young men soon. And, for me, it's teaching them like, hey, you can't just go through life cutting corners and not following rules and standards, because you're going to get fired, from jobs. And let's be honest, half of these kids won't go pro, it's minute. So.
No, that's fair. With the idea that, just like you said, how most of these kids are not going to go pro, which is no matter where you are, even if you're at a Division I school, right? Like the odds of you going professional is, I guess soccer might be a little bit different because I know there's so many technically, like sub leagues, right? So there is a lot of opportunities out there. But in general, the highest level, right? That's really, no matter what sport you are, it's pretty small shot, right? So creating that culture of what they're going to be afterwards is important. Now I know on our last episode together we talked about that, like how you build your culture and how you develop that, right? So in the time frame since we last spoke, since we have last spoke, there we go, that's right. How would has there been any changes to that culture in terms of standards that you've set, or anything that might have been added to it since we last spoke?
No, I think this year, we didn't have the season that we had. We had a really good recruiting class, but the players just didn't have a bite to them, you know. So
Mhm.
you know, for me, it's self-reflection. Whether it's we tell the players to self-reflect as well after every training session, but even us as coaches, you know, what were we doing wrong where we didn't have that bite? Were we too lenient or were we too strict with them? You know, those are those little things that, you know, we're still working on, and we're doing some things, different things here in the spring season to see if is changing with this group of players. You know, we're trying to handle it a little bit different in the spring season. Spring's a little bit more lax, but we're trying to maybe tweak something, see if it was us, see if it was just, was it this group that we brought in that, like you said, the generations are changing. You know, was it this group that we brought in that just didn't buy in as much as we hoped that they would? Is it they didn't buy in because it was us? Or is it something about our culture? Is it something about our standards are too high? Are we expecting too much? So, you know, it's a learning curve for us. You know, we haven't changed anything about the way we feel. There's still things that they have to do. They go into class, come into training, not being late. Those are non-negotiables for us, you know. But the rest of it, you know, I'm not one of those guys that go, we don't make mistakes. I make mistakes every day, you know. So, and right now it's just trying to learn, trying to see if it was us or if it was the group that we brought in that we just didn't get enough out of them. And if that's what it was, you know, what did we do wrong? And then when we get this new batch in, try to solve it.
So, you know, how do you coach, you know, the kids who are returning, right? And obviously the kids who maybe even you can look into like the freshmen who are coming in who might have talked to you during that time, but really the kids who are going to be returners from freshman to sophomore year or red shirts. How do you coach through a season, like turning from this season to next, knowing the talent's there, just the buy-in part? I know, like you said, the self-reflecting and tweaks and understanding that, right? Like that's something on the coaching side that is something that you're trying to figure out. But how do you coach kids through that to where they want to be more motivated, or maybe they create that more buy-in, or maybe they don't transfer, right? Obviously keep them and retain them. So how do you kind of coach them through it to not only stay around, but to go even harder as you go from, you know, last year to this following year?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, you know, we have to also remember that we've only had them for, you know, with the Christmas holidays, 6 months, you know, and fortunately we're in a generation where everything's at our disposal on the phone. So, you know, news is there instantaneously, everything's instantaneous. And I think even sometimes we as coaches think that we can, you know, make these great players instantaneously. So sometimes you just have to take a step back and be like, you know, there's a center mid we have right now that's, you know, now that we took a step back, we're looking at him, we're like, man, he's grown so much since we first got him. And yeah, he's not at the level that we want him to be, but the steps that he took already in 6 months, we're like, give us another 6 months with him. And if he's on that same trajectory, then he'll be at that level that we want. So, you know, for us, it's like, those are those conversations that we have with the players. You know, we do one-on-one meetings, we pull them aside and like, hey, you might not have had the season you have, but this is what we see. You know, we're trying to get them to understand that, yeah, we might not have won all the things we wanted to win, and you might not have scored all the goals that you were hoping to score. You know, and part of the blame is on us as coaches, you know, and we take accountability as that too. But, you know, here's where, for you, this is where we need you to step up your game. Are you lacking the endurance? And if so, these are the things you have to do on your off time. We can't build your endurance up with 2 hours of training a day, 5 days a week. You need to do it on your off days as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Having them, I mean, like you said, them wanting it on their own is just as important, if not more important. So I told you we'd come back to talk about the transfers part because you talked about how that was such a huge space in today's world. So is that something that you see a lot? Is that something that you're personally dealing with at you know, at the 2-year level, or is that more of a just general terms? I mean, how is this affecting you in terms of you know, this whole portal thing?
Yeah, I mean, we don't see it as much. The thing that affects us is we'll get coaches that contact our players, and you know, because their players don't have loyalty at their college and jump ship, they've got to fill holes. So they come and they try to take it from other programs such as ours as well, and so that's where it affects us is them dealing with it at the NCAA level, and then automatically it's going to trickle down because they're trying to find players to either fill their spring squad or their reserve squad or something that they do. And they're promising, and these kids are what, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and they're promising this flashy, red light. Oh, it's D1. You're going to be playing at D1, but they forget to mention that they're going to be on a reserve squad, or it's those are the things that kill me, is that it's there's no longer that look in the eye and be honest and let the people make the decisions based on honesty. There's so many smoke and mirrors, and because they're getting pressure from their athletic directors to win and to keep their jobs, and I get that part, but when you're telling a 17, 18-year-old kids, giving them the false hope thing, in the long run, yeah, you're saving your job, but you got this kid that you're pulling away from a program that they might have done well at, to bring them to sit bench at your program and then transfer somewhere else again and lose credits and spend 30 years in college instead of getting out, and because they lose all these credits. And that's the thing,
Right.
that where the transfers hurt us in that sense.
Yeah, so it's more of just the reason behind everything over the actual fact that it's affecting you as much. Is there an actual fix to that? Like, I feel like in this whole world of that, and I've been told that, I wasn't, this is my first year here, of course, right? So I haven't felt it, hopefully I don't feel it, but I have some girls who came back from last year, that they told me that other schools had kind of did that halfway through the season or whatever, kind of just slid some conversations at tournaments and stuff like that to them about, hey, what about next year, right? Things like that. And I don't know, like it's crazy to me, because like you have, especially if you had the opportunity to get them or you missed it or you couldn't sell them the first time, right? Hoping that there's some flame there basically still to get the kid, like, away from that. Like, I don't know. It's just really hard for me to like put my head around, like, if I might, and maybe this is just a naive new college coach, but for me, when I think about, like, if I see an athlete get sent somewhere else, like, or choose to go somewhere else, excuse me, I'm in a recruiting battle and they're like, I want to go to this school. Like, okay, good for you, right? Obviously, it's unfortunate for us, but great for you. I don't wish upon the kids' downfall. I don't wish that they don't do well there to where they want to come back here. Like, I'm not going to go cherry pick somebody else's kid just because, just because we need a spot or whatever. Like, and that may be something that's a moral thing. That may be how I'm a naive thing, and that's just part of it. But I feel like that's part of what you're mentioning, is like that's something that is happening, and I just don't think I could do that. If that kid, if a certain time comes, after their freshman year, they realize, hey, this isn't the spot for me. I think I want to come back and wrestle for you for, the next year. Like, that's different, I think, because they realize it's not the best fit for them or whatever the case is. Now, situationally, of course, right? Like, what's the reason behind it? What is it actually because you're not going to get minutes? Is it because you realize that you chose a place that you're not developed enough yet for, or is it because your problem and the coach wants you off? Like, what's the reason behind it, of course? But in my head, I feel like that's kind of the one thing that I would probably be okay with, is that they realize it's not going to be the right fit and they need a few more years or whatever the case is, right? On the more of a mutual level versus cherry picking level. But I don't know if there's a fix. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like you saw now. What was that guy that left? He got drafted, I think, by the Hornets, and he went to play in the first year or something, and now he's at Memphis playing basketball, I think it is, or something. And it's like you're just looking like, this guy's a pro. Now they're paying players to stay in school. These players are making millions of dollars to stay in school, and they're actually thinking about making D2 soccer 5 years now.
Really?
Yeah, it's. I just
though, like is it for, like, why would,
and that's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's always going to be based because of something about money. You know that for a fact.
You're not. Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
I just don't know. I don't know if it's more. It's better for kids because it's like, hey, you can come and you can play 5 years, and I don't know what I don't know what the thought process is behind it. Just like I didn't know what the thought process is behind letting ex-pros come back to college. I just don't get it, other than that it's for financial gain in some way, shape, or form. And I still am very old school. I believe in you've got these guys that stayed with one team and won championships and became legends and Hall of Famers in every sport. I couldn't tell you what it is. I just got to go through the process.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, I mean, I don't know either. I think it's just interesting piece of where we are in the world of athletics. I mean, have you actually? Well, I guess I know you're a soccer guy, right? Football. I know you're just a fan of football, but like, have you watched like D2, like playoffs or D3 playoffs and things like that? Like have you watched some of the different levels of soccer?
Absolutely.
What's and obviously you coach in the JUCO level, which I know there's great soccer there as well. But like when you watch it, let's just say you're watching the final, I don't know, final 8, right? The top 8 or whatever, right? Which division is the most entertaining to watch?
Well, D2, I think D2 is not always the most technical players, but they are absolutely just physical. So I think, there's a lot of kids that won't go D2, not because they're not technically really good players. They just physically can't handle that kind of running or pressure or whatever. I just think that now with the open, like I said, the open of the portals and the international market, you've got guys that are 24, 25-year-olds that, have gone through academies at PSG or Madrid, and they're coming over here. Some of these guys that I've got a really good friend in a D1 program that takes yearly trips to Africa to get, some players that are absolutely just beasts running and their physical side of it, because it's something that's lacking within the U.S. club system. So it's not that our players aren't as good. It's just they're developed differently in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. And I think that takes away from the American player, obviously, because, they're losing their spots. But you can't fault a coach because the coach wants the best players around each other,
Of course.
and it's just, but if you go to a game, there's been some amazing Messiah up at D3 up in Pennsylvania. Great D3 program. I mean, you go watch them playing. These boys are pinging the ball around, and it's like they can beat some mid-major D1 teams. And because they get quality players that maybe can't afford to go to some school. And, honestly, there's some kids that don't want to go to a school that has 90,000 people or 80,000 people.
That's true. Yeah.
They're like, they're those type of people. They're more introverted, where they're ballers, but they're just introverts. They don't want to be at an Ohio State that's, it's football and basketball. They might want to go to a D3 school where they have an okay basketball team. They don't even have a football team, but soccer's is king there, because they feel they're kings of campus. You never know, but I think it's great teams at every level. There's great D1s and there's terrible D1s. We played a D1 team a couple of years ago and we beat them in the spring season. It's not that, you know what I mean? So anybody can.
Yeah, for sure.
We played D1 teams that smack us around. So it goes both ways. There's some great teams on every level. NAIA, people sleep on NAIA teams. NAIA, some great programs. Great programs.
I agree. I mean, I've always said that you can find good competition no matter where you're looking, right? You're going to find good competition no matter what division you go. I just find it interesting to think of that because I've watched the D2. Maybe it was Final Four. I can't remember. I think it was earlier. I think it was last year. Fort Lewis was in it, so I think that's why I was watching it because Fort Lewis was like 45 minutes from my house, right? So, or maybe was it Fort Lewis? I can't remember exactly who it was. It was Fort Lewis, or maybe it was an RMAC school. I cannot remember, but I think it was Fort Lewis. Anyways, I was watching it and I was like, man, this is like really good soccer. Like it's back and forth. Like it's, like you said, physical. And I've never really thought of that, because you always hear that. I mean, I think we did talk about how you've beat some D1 teams before and lost to some, of course. But we've talked about, those teams who can play, like you said, that are really good and really bad, no matter what division you are. But I've never really thought about it on the level like perspective, entertainment wise, like which one is the most fun to watch, just because of that, like in general. So that might be a new question I ask actually, because that's actually
I mean, we played a JUCO out of Florida last year or the year before, and they have no Americans. They're all international kids. The coach is international, everything, and it's every language is being spoken on the field except for English. And these guys are in their mid-20s and they're pinging the ball around. Like it was just it's like, even though they're pinging around my team, it was, as a soccer person, beautiful, fantastic to watch, fantastic. And half those kids now, talking to coach, because I'm friends with him, they all went D1 or D2. So that's the caliber we were playing at a JUCO. because they come over from another country. They don't have the money. They want to get the feel of the U.S. But these guys were brilliant. I mean, the game that they played technically, tactically, it was fantastic to watch.
So what's your argument or what's your thoughts whenever you hear those people who will say like, and this just came to my mind, but I can't remember what sport exactly it was. It might have been soccer, might have been basketball, but I just saw a post the other day that was saying how, like the post I was reading the other day literally said how, how did it work? Basically that this team had like, there's 26 people on this team and 18 of them were international, right? So they only had 6 or 8, Americans, and their post got a lot of people talking about it, obviously, like, well, this is in America, we should have at least 60% of the roster should be this, right? So like whenever you hear those people who talk about these international kids who are kind of taking over, in that case, a full roster, right? Like, how do you feel about it? And I don't know. I know it's soccer. I know you scout for Team USA, so international soccer is just something that's kind of, around just soccer in general. You're from Italy, right?
I was born in Greece. I was born in Greece. I grew up in Italy.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you're right. Yeah, so you're from that area too, right? So in general, that whole conversation of international versus that, especially in America, like, how do you feel about it? And what's
your argument?
I think I saw that post as well. There's a D1 school that was all 26 players are all international. Wasn't one American?
That might, yeah. That might be that one. Yeah.
We're talking about it on our team as well. It's such a hard one, man, because I do want to grow. It's one of those things where I'm like, you want to grow the sport in our country as well, where colleges can feed the MLS, and then the MLS can feed the U.S. national team or whatever. But in the flip side of it is, I'm always one of these guys, like, let it be for the best players should be at the best places, and if somebody's better than you, who cares what country it comes from. But I do feel that there should, maybe U.S. soccer at the collegiate level should make it a percentage where, if every D1 school went across and had the money, the budget to go overseas and pick up all these players, and you bring everybody back, and every roster is filled with an international and no American gets to play, at some point it's like, we're never going to grow American players in our country. But again, I if there's a percentage to it, I think that might be okay. But it's such a hard one, because if somebody's better than me, man, they're better than me, and they should play.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But then at the same time, though, like you said, how our goal, or the goal of American soccer, all these clubs and everything that's going on in the world of soccer, which we've talked about as well at the club scene last time. I think we talked about the difference between club and that and everything. So how big that world is for it to, what I'm getting to is for soccer to be, hey, we're hosting the World Cup in 2 years. Or no, this year, excuse me. It's 2026. We're hosting it this year. If we want America and team, United States to do well at World Cups, we have to have the best good players, right? And I think we talked, I don't know if it was you talked about it or if somebody else, but we don't, I actually really do think it was you, but we basically, the best players in America are not playing soccer, they're playing other sports, right? So in order for us to get to that highest level, we have to develop American athletes in the world of soccer, right? So what I'm getting to is, doesn't that affect, I mean, one school, right? And maybe it's a portion of schools, right? Because I know, let's say there's 2,000 soccer programs at the college level. There's not 2,000 that are all, it's not like all of them have international kids, right? But what's the argument when it's like, well, that kind of takes away the opportunity for what the goal of American soccer is? Because I also know, I just read this the other day too, and this was a comment, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that there's not really like a sanction over collegiate soccer in America. Like, there's not really, like, compared to like, NCAA football or basketball or baseball, like there's not really like a committee or whatever you might call it. Like, there's something that United States collegiate soccer kind of lacks, I guess, in terms of it to become that giant, right? In that terms, I could be wrong, but that also probably plays a factor in some of these conversations.
Yeah, it's just like, when you look overseas, whenever there's an American coach, I mean, how many American coaches go and coach overseas? How many of these programs over in Europe and these other countries come to the U.S. and grab our players. Yeah, we have Americans that are over there that get brought, the Pulisic's and all them that went to Dortmund and now he's in Milan, and you get a lot of these players to go there. But compared to how many come to the U.S. to play and us go overseas to play, it's different. There's so many European coaches or other country coaches that coach at the collegiate level here. So, if you get an English coach that coaches a D1 program, he grew up in England, he's got friends and family, and he has connections. He's going to go get all, people that are from his homeland and that he knows and play his style of soccer. And, and can you fault him? Not really, because that's the administration that hires it. And, if the administration go, hey, I know you might be from another country, but this is what I want to do. I guess if it starts from the higher ups where the athletic director is like, hey, we love hiring, but this is what we want to do. We want to make it 50-50 or 60-40. Right. And now it's your job to go find those players who will support you. It's a little bit different, but it's just so hard because it's such a melting pot of players here in this country that, but we don't get, so many coaches flying to the U.S. to come to American clubs to look at our players to bring them over there. But it's completely flipped for us. Our coaches, college, go overseas to find players to bring them here. It's such a weird dynamic.
Right.
To do it, but for me, in the back of my mind, I'm also like, you'll go to a place like the Ivory Coast, and you find a player who might not be able to go to a good school where he's at. And then that in the back of my mind, that's the part of me going, I hope he comes to the U.S. and plays soccer, because soccer might open the door for him to get an education, which gets him a degree, which gets them, money for him and his family. And he goes back and he becomes a doctor, and he goes back to his community and he does, you know what I mean? So that's
that side
outside of soccer. But I'm like, they might not have the opportunity to go to a good school there in their country. So soccer is their only way to get into our country. That's one of the best for academia. You know what I mean? So those are the two swords that I battle with. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that side of it. I didn't really actually think of it that way. But that's a great call. I mean, to think of it as you're giving, hey, we're all about giving opportunities, right? That's what we're doing as coaches, is we're giving kids opportunities. Even in high school, right, you brought kids in and helped them develop. And college, obviously, you're giving kids opportunities. So, I mean, it doesn't say I guess outside of, like you said, if your admin says you have to, but in the rule book, it doesn't say we can't. You have to only give these kids, right? You give opportunities to kids who deserve it, who will make you better, who will fit your culture, right, or whatever your motto is.
We had American. I think we had 5 keepers at Duke. One was English to start, and the other one were American. The 4th and 5th string keepers never saw action, but they got an education from Duke. And what got them the education from Duke is because they got money, or they got to be on the soccer team that offered them a little bit of scholarship. Right. So they didn't play soccer afterwards, but they got that degree from Duke, which opened door to a career pathway for the rest of their lives for them and their family. So it's for both American and non-American. That's the part for me that I'm hoping that's what they'll get out of it. It won't just be come to our country, do what you have to do, and then just go and leave us behind in that sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I can appreciate you talking a little bit about the world of soccer in that respect. I know that's a great topic. It could be talked about forever. So I do have some questions for you, a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. I think I told you last time, and I told at the beginning of this episode, want to talk a little bit about the game for you as a coach when it comes to your coaching style or maybe your program. So what does your off season look like? So I know your off season is technically like December to August. I guess that's technically, but I know you have fall or spring season. What does your typical off season look like as a program?
The players try to take a couple more of the classes, especially a little bit of the harder ones as well, just because in the fall they're at the base minimum, just because of how much responsibility we have with travel and training and things like that. So, a lot of the kids will take classes. Sometimes the classes that they take in the spring might affect them being at training. And we're much more lax about that. We're like, hey, we get it because it is school. A lot of them also pick up part-time jobs just to make some money, because they know that once August rolls around, they won't have time to have a job. So they just try to pad their bank account a little bit. We're a lot more we still train 5 days a week. We're a lot more lax, but not in the sense of, what our training sessions look like. It's more so in our understanding that they have a couple more things to do, and we don't hold them. We don't hold it against them for doing it. So
Yeah.
and we schedule. We have like a tournament that we're going to, that we're playing. It's like a round robin. There's like a couple D2 schools there we're going to go to. It's a 1-day event, and that's about it that we're going to do. We're going to play 3 or 4 games in a day, a little bit smaller minute wise. But that's about it. We're not going overboard and scheduling a bunch of games with big teams, because we don't have a full squad. A couple of our guys we don't even have during the spring, because they're trying to get into a school for engineering. So they're taking a lot more harder classes and focusing more on their academics to get out of Cape Fear and go to places like NC State or stuff for engineering.
So what does your preseason look like? So I know you guys come back a little bit early than probably the other kids on campus, maybe at least a little bit. But what does your preseason look like for you guys?
Yeah, so they'll get, once we solidify our roster, they get, the email with the introduction, all the other players. They start to do their Insta chat or face snap, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever it is, yeah.
They'll start talking to each other, and they'll start setting up who wants to be roommates with who. They get with our athletic coordinator, who she's great. She sets up their schedules for them, so that, she knows when we train, when we have games. So she tries to make sure they get the classes that they need, but also so that it doesn't affect training times. And then, we give them fitness tests. We give them all the things that they need to be prepared. So when they arrive, we start 3 days. That's the blessing of being at the beach. We go to the beach and do trainings as well. They have fitness
3
tests.
days.
Yeah, they'll go early in the morning.
Like it.
They'll go. Two's more. The third one's it's not as physical. It's also, one of them might be in like media rooms doing tactics and watching and studying films and doing stuff. So they don't have school for the first couple of weeks, so they have nothing to do. So they can't say.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I agree. I mean, when you said that, I was like, damn. But I mean, hey, they ain't got nothing else to do. So.
Yeah. So, but we also watch their recovery. But we'll do like, fitness in the morning, just because the weather's a lot better, and then we'll do some video work, or maybe have them get into the gym, or also just go in and get in recovery. We bring them in to do cold baths and the cold bath recovery, and then have them have lunch, and then back out to training, where we do more on-field tactics and technical stuff. It's stuff like that our preseason looks like.
Do you, which I know, being on the East Coast, right, in August, September, it's still real hot and it's probably real humid. So in these 3 days, right, I know you said there's like potentially a beach workout, you have potentially some tactic work, and then you have an on-field stuff. So like, are you switching up when you're out on the pitch, like in terms of practice for that? I know you have to I'm sure there's some middle of the day stuff just so they can acclimate a little bit to it, I'm assuming. But do you guys like, hey, today we're going to do morning because it's going to be 100 degrees outside, or are you, are you switching up your interior versus exterior work?
For the first, right before they go to school, we always do the conditioning work. We start at 6 a.m. just because, like you said, the humidity is a monster here. So we try to do that, but then we also try to bring them, when we do the stuff in the evening, we have some physical, because like you said, just so they can get acclimated, because they're going to be playing in that. We still do that, just not as intense because of how humid it is, and but we'll keep them outdoors quite a bit and just gauge them in that sense. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, what's a typical practice look like for you
during preseason?
We'll say in season. Let's say, and we're not, and I know it varies. Like I know late August, early September practices are different than, right before regionals or conference or whatever it might be, right? So I know it's different, but let's just say early October, you're kind of right in the middle of the season. Like what does a typical practice look like at that point?
We try to, if it's at the beginning of our season, we try to go more through tactics and what we're looking to do. And then we have a lot of these scrimmages that we do. The scrimmages are after we have a scrimmage, we go back and we're like, okay, these are our deficiencies. These are the things we need to work on. So when I'm in the office, we try to come up with training sessions that might emulate the things that we're deficient at. If the other team pressed us very extremely high, and we couldn't get out of the back, I have to design a session where I have one of the teams pressing just like that. How can we, you put it first with cones so they get used to it without pressure, and then you add some pressure, and then you go full live. And then once season kicks off, then it just becomes, hey, what do I have as far as bodies? What's worked, what doesn't work? Are we lacking scoring goals? Then if we're lacking scoring goals like we did this year, we were trying to do finishing activities every training session because we couldn't find a net to save our lives. Defensively, we weren't giving up any goals. We were tied 0-0 constantly. Yeah. So we wouldn't work as much defensively because we were lacking it. So it's more for us that the sessions are based on what our deficiencies are. We really need. But there's also, the boys preseason, before they even come in, they get set pieces that we're going to do. Because we have 8 to 10 set pieces, so they have to memorize where they're supposed to be. And that's another thing, we go over set pieces. So that's something that we put on the kids as far as accountability. You need to know them. If you don't know them, we just send you home. There's no reason for you to be on the field if you don't know what you're doing.
No, that's fair.
So those that's primarily the way we run our sessions. We try to hit all the preseason. Again, the preseason, we have it from A to Z what we need to hit, because I used to despise coaches that would get mad at us for not doing something, but they never showed us how to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
that's
like,
a big problem.
Hey, you got to get out of a leg lock. Well, coach, you never showed me how, but you're getting mad at me.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So the preseason, we give it all to them, and then we have to try to implement it. And if we're not implementing it, how can we get them to that point? It's all it's a journey. I guess that's why we coach. We're teachers to them. We try to get them to get that final answer, and there's never going to be a perfect game, which is great.
Yeah, no, that's true. What did your grandma say about the ball, right?
I remember that.
I do remember that. What did she say?
La palla es rotonda. The ball is round.
Yeah, the ball is round. Yeah. You never know what happens. You just got to be ready for. You got to be in the position. Got to be ready for it. Yeah. You never know how the ball's gonna roll. Absolutely.
Man, I'm glad you remember that, man. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the obviously with the language, of course, exactly, but I do remember that quote. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's like, play the best game you want, man. The ball's gonna bounce. It bounces in. You have nothing to do.
Yeah, that's why it stuck with me. I was like, bro, that is absolutely true. Like, I mean, you hear like other terminologies, of course, other analogies or whatever, but yeah, your grandma's spot on. I mean, you can be, like you said, perfect game and still lose, and that's the beauty of sports. And I've been trying to preach that to the girls. I coach the women's side of things, and it's just one of those things where I try to preach the mental side of like, hey, you can be wrestling outstanding, and somebody catches you you probably don't know this, and you probably don't unless you somehow saw it be shared or something. But there was this high school girl a few weeks ago from the state of Iowa. She was going for her 4th state title. She won it all the way, freshman up, and it might be number 1 in the country, but she's one of the top 5 probably in her weight class in the country. And let's just say really good, right? Going for a 4th title. And then there's this girl who stepped in the ring and pushed her to her limits and ended up upsetting her in the state finals.
Oh, wow.
So she couldn't win her 4th, right? And so we had that conversation with some of the girls because obviously that girl was really good to make it to the state finals. So it's not really taking anything away from her and her winning. But on true levels, like, is that girl better than the one who lost? And most of them are like, I don't, know, like, technically speaking or whatever. And I'm like, so if that's how you feel, just understand that anything can happen. So be prepared for it and find a way to wrestle through it. But at the same time, like, even though she's not better, she still found a way to win, right? So sometimes that's all you have to do. But the idea is, like, she was wrestling really well her whole career, and one match just happened to go opposite of her, right? And so anyways, I love that phrase from your grandma because it stuck with me a little bit. Obviously in the English translation, but it works out. It worked out just fine. But so talking about practice and everything, my final piece about practice, what's your favorite part of it?
When the light bulb goes off over their head.
Hell yeah.
Time to go home, baby.
You got it. Because when it doesn't come, you're like, man, what am I doing wrong? Am I speaking the wrong language? Is there something wrong with the way I'm saying it? Does the training session suck? And then when the light bulb goes off, you're like, it just, to me, it's just them pushing themselves to limits and them getting it. If they don't go off anywhere else, I just want them to have an experience with us that goes, my birthday just passed a couple of days ago, and the messages I got.
Belated.
Thank you. But it wasn't, messages weren't like, hey, coach, thanks for teaching me soccer. You know what I mean? It was like, thanks for doing things. I got some from parents that were like, thanks for making our kid have a mentor that he looks up to and that they can look. You know what I mean? Those are, for me, man, more than the game itself nowadays. So, but I love when they do something right at training. I'm just like, God, thank God. The bulb just went off. And I'm like, because usually you just see little hamsters running around up there and you're like, what is going on in the head?
I agree. Yeah. I just had that same situation today. There were some guys in there watching practice, and at the end of it, like, I don't know why they made it so hard. It's not that difficult. And I was like, I know, but it's just where they are right now, right? It's just like we have to
process,
piece it together. Yeah. I think that, like you said, it's just part of it. You also, it's interesting. I'm not going to ask you your coach's why again, but you kind of threw another piece in there, about, it's a little bit more important to you for those relationships and what the long term is out of it, other than the wins and losses. So unintentionally throwing another coach's why out there. So appreciate you, coach. Thank you for that one.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, man. I mean, that's what we're here for, man. We're their teachers. And at the end of the day, as we get older, man, you can, what are you going to do with these titles? You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like those old trophies you had when you were in school. You thought you'd have them forever when you were a kid, and you could barely find those things, man. It's like,
absolutely.
But I think the legacy you leave is the ones where you influence them, and, then they get married and they do stuff. And those are the ones I'm hoping to keep relationship wise.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a big thing. I'm looking forward to that as well. So I'm super excited for that piece. Well, how do you get kids to peak at the right time? And so give an example of like a mental approach and or physical approach, but when it comes to getting them to peak at the right time.
I think it's also monitoring what they do. And I think that's the communication part as well. We had one kid, and I'm not kidding you, when he got into us, he was telling us that, he's eating mozzarella sticks and those little Crustables every day. And that was his diet. And, so you're like, so a lot of it, again, is you have that ignorance when you're 17, 18, thinking you can do everything and eat anything. But as you go up in the game, the body is a machine that you have to feed the right stuff. So, for us to have them peak is also talking to them what they're eating, limiting certain things that we could. This year, like I said, we couldn't score goals. So our defenders are putting in 90 minutes every game. We couldn't pull them and put in subs because it was 0-0 still, and we didn't want to lose the game. And so those are the things, whereas, they might want to train the next day, but you as a coach have got to be firm. Like, you're not training. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with your body and your recovery. Because for us, long-term goal, long-term peak is important to us. It's the preseason. You know what I mean? It's a preseason, whereas region is the most important thing to us. If we win preseason but lose region, we don't go to the national games. Yeah. So, and
knowing when to push, when not to.
Yeah, they just want to win all the time, which I don't fault them for, but sometimes you have to show them what the long-term goal is.
For sure, yeah. And that, like you said, important, that communication is absolutely important, understanding how their bodies are reacting, and even if they hide it well, like knowing, having, hopefully they trust you to have that conversation, or I guess, trust you and willing to have that conversation with you. I've had to pry that out of some athletes before, like, hey, I need, like, tell me what's actually going on, because I can tell right now you're not exploding, or you're, this or that, and they worked hard, but they were, they were hiding something that was hurting, and they just didn't want to say it, right? And so, having those conversations suck sometimes, but it's definitely important. And also knowing when to push through games, right? Like knowing when to, like, even though we're playing a game, like for example, us, we might wrestle the same style we might have the same practice for a tournament in early November or late November as, like, we don't care what the term is. We're going to practice the same way through it. But, you know, right now when we're towards the end of our season, you know, we're not practicing the same way as we would, you know, back then, right? So just knowing, you know, not only knowing how your athlete's reacting, but knowing how to program and practice, or, you know, whatever you consider, like you call it sessions, you know, we call it programming, but knowing how to program and when to push, when not to push is also probably just as important, if not the most important thing.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, now in the spring, they would get more water breaks than they do in the fall. In the fall, we try to gear them because, you know, for us, you have to run 45 minutes before halftime to get water. So you got to be programmed, or, you know, to go 45 minutes. Give them water every 3 minutes. They're not going to be, they'll get, whereas in the spring, it's like, yeah, grab a, you know, drink, get a sip here, get
whenever
a sip
you
here.
need it.
So it's a lot different. It's like you said, you know, you have to, and I think that's the thing is that, you know, as a coach, you have to do your homework and actually sit there and write all these things down. There's a lot of these coaches that just try to go, oh, I'll remember to do that. And then you get a training and you completely forget what you were going to do. And, you know, everything just intertwines and you forget to do this and this that's important. And, you know, and that's when everything just crumbles for you. You know, I just learned you have to write everything down in steps and progress and the process. So.
No, that's an important piece, you know. And so, you know, I guess part of this, when it comes to peaking and like the mental and physical, or the physical side of it, but also, like you said, you have to talk to them about the mental side on why as well. But on the other side of it, you know, you're training these kids to be able to go long durations without water, right? Just because that's how the game works. But how do you help athletes develop mental toughness? That, you know, mental toughness, like in just one aspect, is they have to be able to survive 45 minutes of humidity, heat, this condition, because you also get rain and snow out there sometimes too. So, like, you know, you have to be able to mentally survive, or you know, survive a halftime before water. So, like, obviously that's an example of mental toughness. But in the other aspects of your training, or whatever the other case is, maybe just in general, how do you develop that mental toughness?
We start off in the preseason. Once, actually before preseason, you know, we send these group messages that have things, you know, with these Instagrams and clips of, you know, people working out and messages and, you know, just powerful things. Like there was a great one I saw today from the USA's getting ready to play Canada in the hockey gold medal. And, you know, these clips are just with the music and the way that they've cut it. And it gives me goosebumps, and, you know, I want to get in there. So we'll send them stuff like that. We'll, during trainings, you know, the minute they feel limp, we're not a helicopter parent. We don't run up, oh my, is everything okay, Johnny? You know, we don't do that. We try to get them to persevere and push through. If they're like, hey, coach, I'm a little tired, we don't just pull them out because they tell us they're tired. You know, there's a difference. You know, there's a difference between a kid getting slide tackled and you can see it where he's got a little bump as opposed to being injured. You know, because unfortunately they come from a culture where even at club and high school and everything, the minute they go down, the minute they find adversity, mommy and daddy are there to coddle them. And that's what they're used to. And, you know, coaches do the same thing. Oh, because they're getting pressure from mom and dad. Mom and dad understands. They don't want to, you know, look like they don't care about the kid. So we try to develop a thing around us where we're very sarcastic with the players. We're brutally honest with them. You know, they've got thick skin, and you got to see it, you know, now when some of the kids get slit tackled or whatever, they're calling each other out for not getting up quickly and stuff like that, which, you know, they never would have done when we got them 6 months ago. So we try to do as much positive stuff as we can, sending it to them. You know, it's like, hey, I could care less if you make a mistake. I just hate laziness. You know, make all the mistakes you want. We never get mad at them for making a mistake ever. You know, we get mad at them for not running as far, because that's just your heart to push through stuff, but never for making a mistake.
That's a really good mentality to have. I mean, you know, I've worked on that too, and I think it's something that's probably, well, maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but undertrained is like the mental side of the sports, and maybe all sports, but the mental is so huge, right? And so, we have one of our girls who's kind of who is a leader here, also a really good wrestler, but you know, she's told the girls, like, hey, I don't care if I lose in practice. Like, if I'm working on something, I'm going to go for it. And I don't care if I get teched or pinned or none of that, because I know that if I have to train it here if I want it to work out there, right? And so, like, having that mentality, like you said, like, hey, who cares if you make a mistake?
Yeah.
It's a learning right now. Now let's try to make these, now as we go, right, those mistakes of out here now we start minimizing them, right? We start getting less and less or smaller and smaller, which is obviously just as important, if not more important, for probably long term, I would assume, probably just like anything else, like as a coach or if you're a police officer, right? Yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but if you continue them over long periods of time, that's when there's problems, right? So learning how to start shortening those things is obviously important too, right? So definitely important on the mental side, I'm sure, but I think that's I think that's an underrated area of coaching is the mental.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, man. We learned this a while ago while we're coming up doing the coaching courses with U.S. Soccer, is that, there's four sides to it. It's basically like a circle. You've got your technical, your tactical, your physical, and your psychological. And once one of them goes, so like if your physical goes, I talk to my players, if the physical goes, how does it affect you technically? And it's like, you're talking like, because your body, if the ball comes to you, you don't want to lift your leg properly. You can't move to a space because you're physically tired. So your technical goes down. Well, how does it mess with you tactically? Well, if you're supposed to be here and the opposition's 10 yards away from you, if you're tired, you're going to start creeping closer and closer to the opposition. So then you're leaving gaps. Yeah. And so tactically and then psychologically, if a kid, every time the kid gets the ball, if you're a defender and he beats you and he beats you and he beats you 3, 4, 5 times, the next time he gets the ball, what comes to your mind? You're like, oh crap, here he comes again. So psychologically, you're done. Yeah. So everything's intertwined, and that's the mental side. You have to have the physical, the technical, the tactical, and the psychological. You have to have a strong mind going, he might have beat me 3 times, but he's not going to beat me the 4th time.
Beat me 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. So we try to preach all that as we talk to them about those things.
Yeah. 4 sides. I like that a lot. Being broken is very real. Wrestling, you can get broken because your opponent's so much better or whatever. And, there's a way of breaking people respectfully, right? You're not being, rude about it or whatever the case. You're not unsportsmanlike doing it, but having that mentality of wanting to, the offensive guy, right? Like the guy who kept beating that, your defender, he feels like, oh, I broke him. I'm going to get him every time, right? So, but how are you going to react to that, right? So the reaction for when that adversity comes or whenever, oh man, my game plan ain't working right now. How am I going to fix this, right? So being able to fix it on the fly versus giving up is, I know you said that, but I just think that that's such a hard thing, I think, to teach some kids, especially because, I've learned it a little bit, and I haven't done it a whole lot, right, being here for 1 year. But, a lot of these people were who they were that guy or that girl where they were from, or at least really good, right, where they were from. And when they come to college, they are not long. Some of them obviously stand out, and they are good, right, of course. But in general terms, like there's going to be somebody else who's just as talented as you, whether it's on your team or on your opponent's team, right? And so understanding that that's just part of the process of development, and how do we react to it is so important. And I think it's super hard to get sometimes. Some kids are more accepting of it than others, but really hard to get kids to buy into that and like understand like, hey, it's okay. Don't let this affect the next 45 minutes of this game. That the first half, short-term memory. This is what we're going to change.
For second half.
Because you always hear from them. They always say, I'm in my own head. Yeah. You hear that all the time in every sport. I'm in my own head. And I'm like, well, you're going to make mistakes. The pros make mistakes. What makes you think that you at a junior college are not going to make a mistake? Yeah. Pros make mistakes.
It's true. Yeah. I remember a time when I was early playing baseball. It must have been 13, 14, but I was like, I don't remember exactly if it was if somebody said something to me or if I said it to myself, but I was that same way. Like, I was like, dang, I can't believe I made that error. And then for some reason, I remember the moment it clicked. I'm like, well, if I was batting 1,000, or if I was 1,000% on fielding or throws or whatever, I would be in college right now. I would have jumped all of this high school stuff, and I'd be in the college, I'd be professional, or whatever the case is. Then I would reference, the fact that professionals make mistakes. So the earlier you realize that, I think the easier things get. But that was only because, I realized that and I'm still the way. I'm better now, but I used to talk really bad about myself. Not in terms of like, you're a piece of trash or whatever, right? But it was like, dude, you cannot do this, Bob. Like, you sucked here or whatever. And I was always that. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to get myself out of that spot unless I almost got my revenge in a similar situation or that exact situation. Or I just did twice as good the next game or whatever the situation was. Like, I really had to, like, impress myself to, like, forget about it. And I've learned now that there's ways to fuel that and use that as fuel, I should say, in a positive way before it turns all that negative and gets you in your head. I tell the girls all the time, it's easier said than done. Like, way easier said than done. But we have to figure out ways to not get stuck.
Yeah, that's the good thing is that, they have a coach like you that brings their own personal experiences and are open to sharing it, because there's so many coaches that have the ego and like, yeah, I never went through it. And everybody went through those type of things, man. Once you're open, you're vulnerable to them. They see you as a human being and they can relate to you more, I think. So that's great.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal, I think. And so I appreciate you diving in so far as well. Guys, if you guys are still watching, if you guys are on YouTube watching, let's just say, make sure you guys HTB, hit that bell, like, subscribe, all the 9 yards. If you guys are an audio listener, make sure you guys hit those stars, leave a review, but say what you got to say, because Coach and I want to hear it. Coach, I got some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
That's what we're going to end it on. I like to end it. Last time we ended it on the philosophy of your why and the sob stuff. We're gonna talk. We're gonna go some rapid fire here.
All right.
How would you describe your coaching philosophy, and how has it changed over time?
My philosophy is I love to attack. I love to have the boys. It's all about a work rate and work ethic. But also with the understanding that mistakes will happen. I think when I was younger, I was a good player. So I in my own half, I never made mistakes, which is absolutely ludicrous. But when I was a younger coach, I didn't understand why people made mistakes that were on my team, and I had a hard time dealing with it. I think now my philosophy has changed a lot more, where it's like, if they make the mistakes, now me as a coach, how can I change that? How can I help them not make those mistakes again, if I can help?
So how do you develop and grow as a coach?
Self-reflection is the biggest thing. It's to me, it's not just not having an ego. Even if you win, there's a lot of things you've done wrong during the season. And just because you lose doesn't mean that everything you've done is bad. It's a self-reflection thing. You got to take the positives and negatives, and you just got to be completely honest with yourself. You can't sugarcoat it for yourself. You got to look at the man in the mirror and point the finger to and take the same responsibilities the boys do. Absolutely.
What's an overrated / underrated drill or technique in soccer?
Overrated is underrated is I hate this. I heard a commentator say it where ESPN will go bananas when a football quarterback will throw a pass 60 yards or 50 yards on a dime, and they're like, wow, that's the most amazing thing we'll see. But when a soccer player drives a ball 60, 70 yards with his foot, bends it on a player who's running in stride, it's not a big thing. And it's so underrated how they don't give the kudos to things like passing the ball at long distances, putting it on the money, as David Beckham's and all those type of guys. Overrated is I don't know. Some of these celebrations are driving me crazy. It's just overrated. Just score the goal and get back to going. No, but honestly, I think the overrated part for me is the amount of everybody thinks that they have to emulate what the pros do. A lot of these coaches now are trying to get kids at 9 years old to play like Pep Guardiola plays at Manchester City. I think that's the overrated thing, where everybody thinks you have to go negative to go positive, or you have to use the goalkeeper. Everybody has to use the keeper because the Guardiolas and the Artetas and all them use the keeper, so you have to use the keeper. So I just think that's overrated, where everybody just tries to emulate people instead of just trying to come up with their own philosophy and styles.
For sure. So who's the toughest opponent that you faced as a coach, and why? And this could be at any time in your career too. I guess you could do one for Kate, but at any point, I guess.
I guess the toughest opponents for us was when we were obviously playing ACC against some of these teams. The rivalry between Duke and Chapel Hill was hard, not because
Oh, you don't even call them their name. You just call
I
them
know.
Chapel Hill. You don't even call them their name. I didn't even realize that's what y'all did. That's like Ohio State calling the team up north. I didn't realize that was the thing. Okay, so you don't even call it UNC. It's just Chapel Hill. All right, good to know.
It's just
Learn something
I
new.
learned that it was. I said that once when I was there. I got a top from the head coach. Gave me a top, and I put it on. And I was like, "This is a nice Carolina blue color." And they go, "Whoa, you can't say that here."
Don't say that
So I
here.
learned my lesson, man. It was like it's that you're in shirt color. You can't call it Carolina blue. But it was just it was a rivalry because all the players were great on both sides. Coaching staffs on both sides were amazing, but it was just that hatred because they were so right down the street from each other. They just it was the hardest thing to play against, just because you had that blood boiling with every word, every decision the ref made against you. The coaches were going at it. Everybody was going at it.
That's a hot rivalry right there. That's hold on, I'm trying to think because you guys were also really good too. Like not only like the teams were really good too, right? Like UNC's been pretty ranked, Duke's been ranked. Like, yeah.
Teams are always top 10 in the country, top 15 in the country. So the teams are both great players, great coaching staffs, great everything. They have the top officials there. They just hate each other. And to a point where it's like every tackle, you start taking it personal, like he's doing it on purpose. Guy, even though you know he didn't, you see, and then it just escalates into the bench.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it carries over to basketball too. I'm sure. I mean, basketball gets crazy too. Okay. So UNC was just that rivalry. Okay, fair. So how do you handle pressure and expectations as a coach?
I put more pressure on myself to just honestly, it's not the pressure of winning and losing. I've got a good admin where it's not the pressure of winning and losing. I think I put that on myself because I know that a lot of these boys want to move on. And I know that if we win and we make runs, they get noticed, obviously, because if you win things, people will notice you. And it goes on your resume type thing. Hey, I've won a junior college national title, and and you try to send a kid off, it looks better on their paper. So I just put pressure on myself to do stuff. And the pressure for the boys is just, I just want the best for them. And the pressure I put on them is not just athletically. I just, I'm strong at reiterating that's what life's going to throw you. Life's going to throw so much pressure at you. And if you've got like I said, if you got a weak mind about stuff at college where is it important? Sure. Is it important? Not really. And if you crumble amongst the pressure of a soccer game, God forbid that you lose your job and you've got a family and kids and you're the sole breadwinner, I don't want you to crumble into that, so those are things I think about. Those are the types of things that we try to feed into our players. It's not just about the X's and the O's.
Right.
So where do you see your program in 3 years?
Hopefully winning a national title.
Hell yeah.
I want that so bad. The school's never won one, so I'm just in any sports. I'm one of those guys that wants. I would love to do it, just because it's never been done there. Last year we won our region last year for the first time in 15 years at the school. So we weren't the first, but that meant a lot. So I'm thinking, winning a national title for the first time would be great. And the odds are always going to be against us because, we went into it. Every other junior college is stacked with internationals. They're in their 20s and mid 20s and early 30s. Some of them that the odds are stacked against us. But I'm a true believer that it can be done.
For sure, yeah. No, you have to have that mindset as a coach if you want your kids to believe it. We did a little goal thing, and I know this is supposed to be rapid fire for you, but I'm just gonna chime in, I guess, now. There was something that the girls, or we did this mental paper, and it was talking about, what you kind of like that same question, what's your 3 to 5 year goal or whatever. And I told them, like, one of my things, you referenced the wrestling coach at Penn State earlier about how he's been successful for so long, won 12 of the last 13 national titles, I believe. Just crazy numbers there. They've now broken the dual record. They haven't lost in, I think it's either 78 or 88, something like that. Some crazy high number. They haven't lost in that. I think their last duel was 2020 when they lost during COVID, right before it or after it. So, anyways, successful, right? And so I told them, like, my goal is I want to be the Penn State of the 2-year level. My goal is to create a point where we have a legacy where it's expectation that we are a national championship or at least in contention every year.
Yeah.
And producing girls right into the next level. And they all like that, of course. And that's just my mentality, though. Like how you say, like, yeah, my goal is to, I would like to win a natty. It would be not only because you put that pressure and that want to win on yourself, but that's something that your school hasn't accomplished before. Like the same thing here. There's no team national titles, at least on the wrestling side. I don't know if anything ever has won a national title. No. So it'd be kind of cool to be the first one to bring that home, right? So, like, that's my goal as well. But, like, you have to – I guess I reference this because you have to have goals, and obviously big goals are great. Realistic goals are necessary, but having every set of goals for this is what expectations every day, this is a goal we can reach. This is our conference or region. We want to win that, and now our goal is national title, right, or whatever the levels are or steps are for you. So – having that is huge, and I think that you have to have it for your kids to buy into something too. They all want individual success, but like, hell, what's the point of being good if our team's not good? So having that is big. What's the best piece of advice a coach has given you?
Come up with your own methodology and your own culture and standards on things, and don't waver. Don't waver. Because there's pressure from outside noise. Don't waver because you're losing, and don't waver even when you're winning. Don't start changing things up and letting things slide just because you're winning. A lot of people think, hey, I have a standard here and we're winning, so I can lower their expectations because we're head and tails above other people. You guys don't ever drop that. So, yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to ask I got 2 more questions for you here.
All right.
And normally one of the questions is what state produces the best high school sport? So for yours, it'd be soccer. But I'm getting to a point where it's kind of common for these outdoor sports, obviously Texas, Cali, Florida, just because it's coastal, probably even North Carolina, just places that you can stay warm most of the time. So I'm switching it for you. What country produces the best soccer players?
And you can't answer that because I can never go against my Italians, but we're horrible right now. We've got no identity anymore. I don't know if they don't make this World Cup. I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. I can't. I don't think I can. I'll tell you. No, You know what, man?
Balotelli's no longer there. So I mean, who's your striker?
I don't know what to do anymore. No, the Spanish have always been. You've got the typical countries like the Spanish, the Argentinians, the Brazilians as well. The Brazilians have gone back a little bit, but you've always got these greats, the French. But the thing that I love the most right now, there's quite a few of these African nations that it started years and years ago, but they're getting so much more exposure coming out that, and then you get these little countries that broke off from the old Soviet Union type, that are producing a player here, a player there, a player at PSG. You know what I mean? That they're getting these recognitions as top players. Maybe not, 10 or 15 players, but there's 2 or 3 of them that come out of some of these small nations that, to me makes me happy. And it all goes back to the U.S. and scouting thing where, we don't go to certain areas of the country and lift up every rock to find the best players. We usually go into some of these big metropolitan areas and big areas that have big tournaments, Whereas if they did that in some of these countries, some of these small little no-name countries, you would never know of some of these great players that play for some of these high profile. And I think that's something that we need to do here in this country, So, but those South American countries are unbelievable. Those warm climate like the Spanish, and then they just from their coaches to their players, it's a system, and it's brilliant to watch as a fan, but not as an Italian. So
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I can't help you. I'm sorry. Final question. World Cup predictions. Who's your Final Four And who you got winning it?
I've always got the Italians winning it, even though we haven't qualified. That'll never change. I bleed that blue. I'll never.
All right.
No.
I think you did say that to me last time.
Oh,
you did say it's always Italy.
I think it's a tip. I think it's going to be depending on the way that the group stages finish. I think that the group stages are going to have a lot to say who moves on, but I think it's going to be the French will be in there, the Spanish, the Argentinians, and my Italians. That's who I have.
Italians, Mamma Mia, we're in here. Yes, I gotcha. All right.
Y'all and me just crying joy.
Yeah. Hey, if Italians make it out of the group stage, I'm calling you. If they have to qualify first. I know. Once they qualify we'll worry about the group stage. And if they make it out the group stage, I'm gonna call you and be like,
you can cry on my shoulder.
I do think that the Americans have got a great shot of advancing pretty far. I really do. I think we've got a really good team. I think everybody gives a hard time to the coach and all that, but I think that we're going to do well, especially with hopefully we get the home support. Hopefully where they play has a big part of it. I think that's where a lot of times when we do these international matches, qualifiers, where I think that the U.S. makes mistakes is for the longest time they would play, like when we played Mexico, they would play them in San Diego or in Texas or in Miami, where it's massive Hispanic population, instead of playing them in like St. Louis or in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I think that if we play in the right venues, I really think with the right backing that the Americans are going to do well.
I would love to see that. I mean, I don't know. I would love to see it. I don't know if I told you this or somebody. It had to be somebody, but I think I said I predicted USA to be final 8, I think.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. Yeah. That's a good prediction, though, man. It's like their first games against Paraguay, and they have them playing in L.A.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude. So, yeah. I think that has a lot to do with it, man. I think the venues have a lot to do with it. They're putting real grass into the Dallas Cowboy Stadium and in Atlanta and all that. And even though you say it's the same, it's not the same, as having natural grass. So I just think the venues and the crowd and all that, who buys the tickets,
factor.
Massive. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I've tried to get tickets, and I have yet to hear anything back from the good old FIFA. I mean, I don't know why it's so damn hard to get tickets. I mean, I feel like we're a host country. We should get
I agree.
opportunities to get it, but I understand they can't monopolize it to where it's just Americans getting it, but at the same time, like, I didn't know it was this difficult. And I'll be honest with you, I also don't know if they're doing it because it's America. Like, if this World Cup, like, if this World Cup was in like Morocco, would they still treat the getting tickets the same way, or is it because we're in America and it's America?
And the prices are astronomical, man. It's crazy. You got people flying over, and $1,200 for one ticket to the USA Paraguay game is insane.
Yeah, I agree. Which I think we talked about why it's also hard to grow the sport of soccer, because I know you talked about it, I believe, about how over like in England, I think is what the reference was, how you can get between this place and that place, and like all of those can be within like a 12-hour spin or whatever. Maybe that might be exaggerated, but it's pretty relatively close. Versus here, it's 18 hours between this place and this place. So
can you imagine if you follow, like, most teams these fans that go to these countries, and they follow their team around. So in Italy, you could take the train from one end to the other in 12 hours. So you could, if the World Cup's held in Italy, you could follow your team around on a train. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if the U.S. plays in L.A., the next game's in New York, and the next game's in Miami? You're flying, and then the cost of the flight, and it's insane. It's a day trip. You're losing 3 hours here, 3 hours there. It's crazy. And then now you're having it with Canada and with Mexico. Can you imagine flying up to Toronto and then
down to Mexico City or something?
Can you imagine that? I mean, you're going LA, Toronto, Mexico City. I
mean, you got to have a passport. I mean, obviously, hopefully you already have one, but if you don't, you got to get it's just interesting. I wish that it was. I think that's one way that we could have made it maybe polarized a little bit more in terms of like growth for like people wanting to be part of it. Is, hey, let's not make these tickets feel like it's a Super Bowl, which I know it is the Super Bowl. Like, hey, if that's the ticket for the World Cup Finals, I guess I understand that. Group stage, like I don't know, group stage.
I agree with you 100. I mean, we have opportunity to get some tickets, and one of them was Argentina, and I think it was Kazakhstan, or I don't know who else they're playing, and it was like in the $800. And no disrespect, man, $800 to. Because can you imagine that what's going to happen is everybody goes to Argentina matches to watch Messi and all them, great. But once they start pounding in 3-4 goals, they're going to pull them. So you're spending all this money. You go and you see maybe Messi for a half, great. But the amount of money you try to bring kids and all these, and that's the thing where I think we just lost what it's all about,
Yeah.
And that's the sad part, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is. I've thought about it, and like I remember my team. I'm a Mets fan in baseball. The Mets made the World Series like about 10 years ago now. I think it was 2015, and my mom was thinking about getting me a Christmas present, or my birthday or Christmas. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was going to be a birthday / Christmas present. Anyways, for my birthday, right? And she was going to give me a World Series tickets. And she was like, yeah, I really wanted to. I knew how bad this would have been great, but like, I just couldn't afford it, right? And at that time, like I was, I think a junior in college. So, I was able to have done it, but like I didn't really think about it, right? My mom was like, I just want to do it for the fact that like, hey, now you're in the World Series. When's the next time you'll see it type of situation, right? Couldn't afford it. And so like now, which hindsight, like, the thought process, or at least considering it is means a lot too. But if that ticket was $250 versus $900, like we could have both went and got flights and a hotel for that at that time, So that does make a big factor into it. And obviously, it's just, well, I shouldn't say obviously. I don't know what other countries are, but I do know America is America and what it is, right? And it's just financially speaking, you have to be all right to be able to go afford those things.
And what sucks if you buy, can you imagine buying a ticket where you buy a round of 16 tickets because you're doing the brackets and you think it's going to be Argentina and Brazil, say, but something happens in the group stages and you get two lower level, you know what I mean, man? And you're spending thousands of dollars to watch
on.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, that's where I have issues.
All right. So I know what happened there.
Time?
No, but what happened was I took my AirPod out because I thought I heard something. I was like, what the hell is this noise? And it just started raining. I didn't know it was going to rain. But when I pulled out the AirPod, it did what it did. So I was like, so my fault there. But yeah, I mean, like you said, can you imagine? No, I mean, I just think that it is what it is. It's where we are. It's how it is. But I mean, I remember whenever I was watching the 2014 World Cup, and you had Tim Howard and all these guys who were Donovan and I don't know, you just had team. That was the last time Team USA at least really felt like they had a good team that could go decent into it, right? And I remember talking to my really good friend at the time. I was like, the next time the Olympics or next time World Cup or Olympics ever come here, I'm gonna do whatever I can to go. And it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, I mean, I thought about it, been trying, but like I also didn't think I was gonna have to spend 10 grand for 2 days, or whatever. So it is what it is, but whatever. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, Coach, I appreciate you jumping on here. I really enjoy conversation with you, man. I mean, we've talked before, not only podcast wise, but we've jumped on a phone call and just talked before. So I appreciate conversation with you, and I appreciate you jumping on here today. So thank you again.
Always, man. You're a class act. I told you that the first time, man. And that's the only reason you and I keep in contact, man, because you're good people, and I wish you nothing but success in what you're doing now, man. I was so happy when you told me you got that job, man, and my door is always open for you if you're ever in North Carolina, brother.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, and I know, man, I'm gonna make it out that way. I've really thought about trying to go out to that northern Georgia area because I have a really good friend that lives out there. But while I'm out there, I was gonna try to get to North Carolina at some point. So try to make it out there at some point. I will definitely hit you up whenever I'm out that way. If you're ever out here in the Midwest, bro, if you're ever out here in Oklahoma, North Texas, let me know.
Hey, man, if the Italians make the World Cup final, man, you need to come.
Hey, yeah, come on down, brother. We're going to go to Arlington. Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I appreciate those comments, man, and I appreciate you. I mean, yeah, same way. I mean, I appreciate the genuine conversations and just, you know, the genuine care about, you know, friendship to friendship. So I really appreciate you, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and you know, it's always good to have Coach Vlahos jump on and talk. So if you guys haven't, make sure you guys go follow Cape Fear Soccer on Instagram and all the social media. Coach Vlahos also has some social media as well, so make sure you guys go give him a follow. I'll put all that stuff in the description below. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys again for watching, and we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.